Trump's cabinet picks. Here are all of the appointments so far. From retired Marine Corps Gen James Mattis leading the Defense Department to Steve Bannon as chief strategist. Here's who Trump has appointed so far. The open question of how Donald Trump will govern is being filled in with names of men and 4 women. As of early December, floated for inclusion in his cabinet and for cabinet-level posts. Trump's picks reveal a penchant for military brass, political outsiders, Wall Street titans and white men. The picks do not betray a particular faith in the value of prior government experience. Here's the list so far. Defense, James N. Mattis. Mattis, 66, retired Marine Corps general. Led troops to combat in both Afghanistan and Iraq and rose to top military commands. Stepped down as commander of U.S. Central Command in 2013. Hawkishness, especially on Iran, put him at odds with the Obama administration. Has called for a new security architecture for the Mideast built on sound policy. Iran is a special case that must be dealt with as a threat to regional stability, nuclear and otherwise. Only 3 years out of active duty would require a congressional waiver of a federal law requiring a 7-year cooling-off period for defense. Nicknamed Mad Dog, Homeland Security, John F. Kelly. Kelly, 66, retired Marine Corps general. After a 45-year military career, Kelly stepped down in January 2016 as commander of the U.S. Southern Command, a role in which he was responsible for U.S. military activities and relationships in Latin America and the Caribbean, including the controversial detention facility at Guantanamo Bay. Has warned about border security. His son Robert, a first lieutenant in the Marines, was killed in combat in Afghanistan in 2010, making Kelly the most senior U.S. officer to have lost a child in the War on Terror. CIA Director Mike Pompeo. Pompeo, 52, a third-term congressman from Kansas. After the Boston Marathon bombings in 2013, Pompeo falsely claimed that U.S. Muslim organizations and religious leaders had not condemned terrorism. He called those at the CIA who participated in torture heroes, not pawns in some liberal game being played by the ACLU, and former Intelligence Committee Chair, Senator Dianne Feinstein, opponent of closing the detention facility at Guantanamo Bay, a vocal critic of the Iran nuclear deal and a supporter of NSA bulk data collection, has called for the traitor Edward Snowden to be executed. Treasury, Steven Mnuchin. Mnuchin, 53, campaign finance chairman. Former Goldman Sachs hedge funder and Hollywood producer, Sully, American Sniper, The Legend of Tarzan. Son of Goldman Sachs employee, Yale grad. Swooped on doomed IndyMac Bank as it sunk in the 2008 housing crash, acquired it and scored when the federal government bailed out the bank. They call him the foreclosure king. Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown said, "This isn't draining the swamp, it's stocking it with alligators." Announced he would oversee the largest tax change since Reagan and said his number 1 priority is tax reform. Attorney General Jeff Sessions. Sessions, 69, U.S. Senator from Alabama in his 4th term. Former U.S. Attorney, State Attorney General, an immigration hardliner who was an early Trump adopter, becoming the first senator to back the eventual winner. Sessions' last confirmation hearing for a federal judgeship under Ronald Reagan in 1986 was derailed when former colleagues testified that he used the N-word, called a black assistant U.S. attorney boy, and joked that he thought the Ku Klux Klan were okay until I found out they smoked pot. Has emphasized law and order, seen by some liberals as a coded phrase for discriminatory policing of minorities. Labor, Andrew F. Puzda. Puzda, 66, restaurant executive operating fast food chains including Carl's Jr. and Hardee's. Vehement critic of government regulation and staunch opponent of minimum wage laws and the fight for $15 movement. Blames Obamacare for increased labor costs and has diagnosed a government-mandated restaurant recession. Health and Human Services, Tom Price. Price, 62, six-term Republican congressman from Georgia, orthopedic surgeon staunchly opposed to Obamacare, became chair of the House Budget Committee in 2015. Attempted in 2015 to defund Planned Parenthood through a budget maneuver. Seen as opponent of women's health programs. Described as having a 100% pro-life record. Housing and Urban Development, Ben Carson. Carson, 65, retired pediatric neurosurgeon. His mother, one of 24 children, raised Carson and a brother in poverty in Detroit and then in Boston, occasionally relying on food stamps and other programs. Carson, a critic of government welfare, has called for private charities to shoulder welfare needs. Ran Department of Pediatric Neurosurgery at Johns Hopkins for 30 years but no government experience. A purveyor of bizarre conspiracy theories and a provocateur who compares abortion to slavery and same-sex marriage to pedophilia. His bestseller Gifted Hands was made into a movie starring Cuba Gooding Jr. Environmental Protection Agency, Scott Pruitt. Pruitt, 48, Oklahoma State Attorney General. A climate change denier and a longtime enemy of the EPA, whose rule he has called unlawful and overreaching. Part of legal action waged by 28 states against the EPA to halt the Clean Power Plan, an effort by Barack Obama's administration to curb greenhouse gas emissions from coal-fired power plants. On the overwhelming scientific evidence that human activity is causing the planet to warm, that debate is far from settled, he said in May. Scientists continue to disagree about the degree and extent of global warming and its connection to the actions of mankind. Environmental groups say that Pruitt has been a puppet of the fossil fuel industry. Commerce, Wilbur Ross. Ross, 79, billionaire investor known for aggressive moves to agglomerate and sell failing steel and coal industry interests. Like Trump, a critic of U.S. trade deals who has lamented the decline of American manufacturing. Net worth of $2.9 billion, according to Forbes. Dubbed Vulture and King of Bankruptcy because of his knack for extracting a profit from failing businesses. Helped Trump keep control of his failing Taj Mahal casino in the 1990s by persuading investors not to push him out. An explosion at a mine in West Virginia, which his company had bought a few weeks earlier, killed 12 miners in 2002. Transportation, Elaine Chao. Chao, 63, former Secretary of Labor and Deputy Secretary of Transportation. Married to the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell. Daughter of a shipping magnate. She made more than $1 million from serving on the boards of News Corp, Wells Fargo, Ingersoll Rand and Vulcan Materials in 2015, public records show. U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley. Haley, 44, Governor of South Carolina. Youngest governor in the country, first woman and first Indian American to hold the job in the Palmetto State. Fluctuating popularity. Praised for signing legislation to remove the Confederate battle flag from the grounds of the state capitol and for leadership after 2015 mass shooting at a historic African-American church in Charleston. Endorsed Marco Rubio in the Republican primaries and jabbed at Trump in a reply to the State of the Union address she delivered for the Republican Party in January 2016. Education, Betsy DeVos. DeVos, Education Secretary, daughter-in-law of Richard DeVos, co-founder of marketing company Amway. The family has a net worth of $5.1 billion, according to Forbes. Her lobbying for school vouchers has been criticized for undermining public sector schools, which critics note neither she nor her children attended. DeVos's brother is Eric Prince, the founder of Blackwater, a private security contractor notorious for its lucrative and deadly role in the Iraq War. Small Business Administration, Linda McMahon. McMahon, 68, entertainment executive. For decades ran the premier pro wrestling league in the country, now called World Wrestling Entertainment, WWE, with husband and founder Vince McMahon, whose net worth Forbes pins at about $1 billion. spent tens of millions of dollars on a couple of Senate runs only to be rejected by the voters of Connecticut. She donated millions to Trump's campaign and has given millions to his foundation, too. Cabinet-level jobs not requiring confirmation. The following 3 positions do not require Senate confirmation to fill. National Security Advisor, Michael Flynn. Flynn, 57, retired U.S. Army general and former director of the Defense Intelligence Agency. A close Trump advisor known for his scandalously broad-brush criticism of Islam and flirtation with conspiracy theories. A vocal critic of the Obama administration. Flynn has falsely claimed that Sharia law is spreading across the U.S. and that the nation is in the midst of a world war with radical Islamists. Fear of Muslims is rational, he tweeted earlier this year. Son recently booted from the Trump transition team after tweeting credulously about fake news. Chief of Staff, Reince Priebus. Priebus, 44, chairman of the Republican National Committee. Wisconsin native and a steady hand when things get weird. Once criticized for a failure to stand up to Trump. In retrospect praised for winning over his party's insurgent and ascendant president-elect. It's pronounced Reince like pints or EINs, and Priebus, chief strategist, Steve Bannon. Bannon, 63, campaign CEO, former chairman of Breitbart News, Harvard, Goldman Sachs, documentary filmmaker, and Seinfeld, of all things, boasted that he made Breitbart the platform for the alt-right, in reference to the far-right movement in the U.S. His website was a clearinghouse for hate speech of all kinds including white nationalism, anti-Semitism, immigrant hatred and misogyny. Seen as opponent of the institutional Republican Party. A former sharp critic of House Speaker Paul Ryan.